Rim of the Pacific, RIMPAC, 2018, the world's largest international maritime exercise concluded on August 2nd, following over a month of rigorous training events conducted off Hawaii and California. This year's RIMPAC marked the 26th in the series that began in 1971. 25 nations, 46 surface ships, 5 submarines, and more than 200 aircraft and 25,000 personnel, including 17 Marine and Army contingents, participated in the biennial exercise. Participating forces exercised a wide range of the maritime capabilities, ranging from disaster relief and maritime security operations to sea control and advanced warfighting. Now let's consider RIMPAC 2020. Building on the successes of RIMPAC 2018 and leveraging the changing political conditions in the Indo-Pacific highlighted during the 2017 and 2018 Shangri-La dialogues, and in line with the new muscular national security and defense strategies, serious consideration should be given to conducting RIMPAC 2020 in the South China Sea, SCS. If so, the bold trifecta in strategic effects, pushing back against China's unilateral expansionism in the strategic waterway, reinforcing the legal standing of the 2016 International Arbitral Tribunal ruling that invalidated Beijing's 9-line claims, and underscoring the universal importance of rule of law and compliance with global norms, will demonstrate that the United States and like-minded nations are willing to stand up for their national interests and shared values. The expansive and deep-watered SCS, stretching from the Malacca Straits to the Taiwan Strait, offers a diverse tactical environment to accommodate a large fleet of participating ships, submarines and aircraft. And it allows for a realistic and complex maritime training regimen that includes disaster relief, amphibious operations, gunnery, missile, anti-submarine and air defense exercises, counter-piracy operations, mine clearing, and diving and salvage operations. Importantly, for high-end warfighting like amphibious operations, live-fire training, and ship-sinking exercises, SINKEX, there is plenty of open water and airspace in the SCS, coastlines and islands along Vietnam, Philippines, Brunei, and Malaysia, and training areas and weapon ranges in Australia and the Philippines. The SCS is operationally less burdensome for many prospective RIMPAC 2020 participants. Distant nations such as Japan, South Korea, India, Sri Lanka, Israel, United Kingdom, France and Germany will significantly cut their transit times to the exercise's operating areas, while regional countries like Vietnam, Philippines, Brunei, Singapore, Malaysia, and Thailand can mostly operate from their home ports. Regional nations can also host foreign military forces and lay the groundwork for future defense cooperation. The U.S. Navy maintains a headquarters staff in Singapore, Commander, Logistics Group Western Pacific, CLWP. The command operates under Japan-based Commander, U.S. 7th Fleet, C7F, with a mission to provide logistics and maintenance to the fleet, and to conduct a range of theater security cooperation activities in Southeast Asia. Along with C7F, CLWP can augment planning efforts led by Commander, U.S. Pacific Fleet, the exercise sponsor of RIMPAC. In addition to encouraging better Chinese behavior, holding RIMPAC 2020 in the SCS can also 1. Blunt Beijing's wide-ranging efforts to dominate the strategic waterway. These actions include expanding administrative control through further expansion and militarization of its 7 military outposts in the Spratly Islands, possible plans to establish more military outposts at Scarborough Shoal, James Shoal, Vanguard Bank and Macclesfield Bank, the permanent stationing of a search and rescue vessel at Subi Reef, possible introduction of floating nuclear power plants and launch of a constellation of satellites to monitor and control commercial shipping, establishment of its own version of RIMPAC in the SCS, and most recently, the manipulation of the Draft Association of Southeast Asian Nations, ASEAN, Code of Conduct through language that excludes non-states from the SCS, regulates military activities in the SCS, and gives Beijing the authority to veto military exercises between ASEAN members and foreign powers from outside the region. 2. Encourage freedom of navigation operations, FONOPs, to challenge excessive maritime claims by other nations with shared interests and global norms. Other SCS claimants, Vietnam, Philippines, Brunei, Malaysia, Indonesia, Taiwan, regional nations, Australia, New Zealand, Japan, South Korea, India, and outside powers, United Kingdom, France, Germany, may feel more inclined to do FONOPs and other related activities, both military and economic, in the SCS region, either individually or jointly if they believe America is serious and they are part of a collective long-term international effort to uphold the rule of law. 3. Set the conditions for more maritime exercises like Talisman Sabre in Malabar to be conducted in the international waters of the SCS, and effectively push back on the Chinese legal position that coastal states have the right under the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea, UNCLOS, to regulate both economic and foreign military activities in their exclusive economic zones, EEZ, despite China itself doing exactly the opposite. 4. Provide an opening to re-invite China provided it complies with RIMPAC standing rules of engagement and code of behavior, particularly not bringing along spy ships. If Beijing accepts the invitation, it implicitly acknowledges the International Arbitral Tribunal's ruling in 2016 was not a scrap of paper and also accepts the U.S. legal position that military activities are a recognized lawful activity on the high seas and within the EEZ under customary international law and are preserved under Article 58 of UNCLOS. The international community by and large agrees with Washington. Only 27 states concur with Beijing's interpretation of UNCLOS, while the majority of states, over 100, including all permanent United Nations Security Council members other than China, hold Washington's position. Therefore, if Beijing does not accept the invitation, it further undermines its regional and global standing and accentuates the growing perception amongst its neighbors that it is a destabilizing force in the region. 5. Provide an opening to invite Taiwan since it is also a SCS claimant with vested interests in the strategic waterway. 6. Advance the long-sought Maritime Domain Awareness Initiative for the SCS, provide an economic boost for the local host nations, and deter the piracy that still plagues parts of the SCS. But it's still unclear if America can re-political warfare and influence operations in order to speak up on behalf of consensual government and individual liberty while countering Chinese strategic narratives of inevitable China's dominance over a declining America. And it remains to be seen if the United States will in fact rebuild its navy, which would add believability to efforts to strengthen alliances against Chinese assertiveness. If the United States does all this and makes it clear something's changed in American thinking vis China and will stay changed with future administrations, other like-minded countries just might come along to RIMPAC 2020 in the SCS. However, if Washington's extant response towards Beijing's assertiveness is only temporary, and America returns to its earlier nuanced approach that created the current mess, always worrying what China will say and ready to accommodate Chinese wishes, then there's really no need for RIMPAC 2020. And indeed, Washington might as well pull back from Asia entirely and defend along the so-called Third Island chain centered in Hawaii. But if the United States is serious, it's time to swing for the fences. Holding RIMPAC 2020 in the SCS is that indeed. One of course already hears the harumphing from certain quarters about a South China Sea RIMPAC 2020. Unrealistic, unthinkable, can't be done, and so forth. Fair enough. But the purpose of essays such as this is to expand thought, sort of like an opening offer in a negotiation. So if not the entire exercise in 2020, why not hold parts of it in the South China Sea region, just as portions of RIMPAC are already conducted in Southern California? Perhaps an HDR exercise in Vietnam or anti-piracy training near Indonesia is feasible, or even a portion in Guam and the Northern Marianas. Take a step-by-step approach and don't back down, and by 2022 or 2024 RIMPAC, or large parts of it, in the South China Sea just might fall into place.